Mr. Walkinshaw from Virginia for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. General C.Q. Brown, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and the former Chief of Staff of the Air Force, a fighter pilot, commander of all Air Force operations in the Indo-Pacific, recipient of the Defense Distinguished Service Medal, the Air Force Distinguished Service Medal, and a Bronze Star, among others. Fired. Not for cause, not because he lacked the experience or the qualifications to lead. Rather, he was fired by President Trump amid an ideologically motivated purge of military leaders. After, by the way, Secretary Hegseth suggested that he got his job due to race. Kind of ironic from someone who got his job based on being a cable news celebrity. Admiral Lisa Franchetti, Chief of Naval Operations, a former surface warfare officer, former commander of U.S. Naval Forces Korea, Deputy Commander of U.S. Naval Forces Europe and U.S. Naval Forces Africa during the 2018 strikes against Syrian chemical weapon facilities. Again, fired without cause. My colleagues here today want to spin a false narrative. They want to claim that diversity efforts are at odds with merit-based policies. But these firings did nothing to bring or restore merit to our armed forces. President Trump's policies are removing the best of the best from positions of power, not because they lack qualifications or experience, but because this administration is hostile to seasoned leaders whose views differ from theirs, perhaps, and whose backgrounds don't fit their specific stereotypes. And when this plays out in the institution of our armed forces, readiness suffers. But don't take my word for it. In the words of Admiral McRaven, the 4-star who oversaw the raid that killed bin Laden, there is, quote, no doubt that General Brown and Admiral Franchetti were war fighters, committed to the cause through and through. If President Trump and my Republican colleagues and our witnesses here today want to talk about advancement based on merit, they owe the American people an explanation for dismissing two, and I'm just talking about two here today, exceptionally qualified military leaders while the president is starting wars of choice across the globe. In the words of General Stanley McChrystal, the 4-star who oversaw the Joint Special Operations Commander in the Iraq War, these efforts are a complete distraction, a waste of time, and in fact run counter to the concept of a meritocracy. What they're really about, as General McChrystal observes, is making the U.S. military an exclusive organization that only values service from people of a certain gender and of a certain race. Admiral McRaven goes on. These recent firings raise a risk that senior officers will be overly cautious about providing their best advice, and therefore the risk of military miscalculation, and wow, have we had some miscalculations lately, will grow dramatically. So let's call it what it is. Efforts to exclude qualified women and people of color from positions of power. They're not doing away with DEI, they're just doing racism and sexism. And the American people will suffer as a result. Ms. Felcher-Stepman, you expressed concern that this administration's, quote, new commitment to meritocracy might be lost in a future administration. Do you agree or disagree with Admiral McRaven, General McChrystal, that these firings had nothing to do with merit?
No, I have no way of doing that, but there are only several bases on which it's illegal and unconstitutional to fire someone, and that's the purpose of the hearing today, right?
Do you think these were these merit-based firings? Is there any evidence to suggest they were?
The president, we elect a president, not generals, right? So he has to have the legitimacy to choose.
Should he fire them based on merit?
He can make any decision he wants for the people who are working under him because the American people elected him.
Maybe your organization should look into these firings and see whether they were merit-based or race-based or sex-based. Will you do
If they
that?
were race-based or sex-based, they would be illegal.
Why don't you look
I don't
into
see
them?
any evidence of that.
Why don't you do a report on that?
I don't see any evidence of the fact that it was race-based or sex-based, and
Thank you,
those are
Mr.
the
Chairman. I
only
yield
ways
back.
that is illegal to fire someone. The president can fire somebody for disagreeing with him.
Mr.
for
Chairman,
sure.
my time has expired. I yield back.